As a three-time pilgrim on the Camino de Santiago, sometimes I get asked, should I walk the Camino? And my answer is always yes, 100%, you should walk the Camino. So in this video, I'm going to give you 4 broad reasons why I think it would be a really great idea to spend some time on an ancient path in Spain. The first reason I think you should consider walking the Camino is because it gives you a chance to connect with your physical reality in a way that is often difficult in our modern world. For the most part, pilgrims are walking the Camino. There are other ways you can do it, but most pilgrims are walking. And that constant movement, that physicality of using your body in the way that our bodies as humans were literally designed to do. I mean, we are designed to walk at slow, steady paces for long distances. It's an awesome experience. I have never felt better in my body than when I finished my 40-day Camino. I felt strong. I felt at ease. I felt like I could do what I needed to do because my body was being used correctly. I'm sure there are other ways to feel like that, but the Camino is almost like a shortcut to that. I also really loved the fact that walking the Camino meant that I was actually outside for so much of the day. I spend a lot of my life inside looking at screens, and so the chance to actually experience sunlight and rain and heat and cold, the sound of birds, the sheep with their bells clanging in the fields, all of these sort of connected me to the natural world in a way that really reminded me of my place in it and that I have a place in it, that we are connected and we were created to live together. Part of that physicality also was just, yes, you're going to feel tired and you might have soreness, but you're going to feel like you earned it because you did. You really did earn it. And so there was something really wonderful about, again, that connection between using your body the way that it's designed, living in the world around you, that is just a really sweet spot with the Camino. Another reason I really think that walking the Camino is great is because it helps move you away from distraction and excess. I think the number one question you see pilgrims ask as they prepare to walk the Camino is my bag too heavy? We have a lot of concern around what we're carrying, how much we're carrying, and that is a lesson that we can apply to so many different parts of our lives, both physical and emotional baggage is something to consider on the Camino. When you're carrying everything with you, you start asking questions about, do I really need this? And what you can realize from walking a Camino is that there's very little that you actually need to still have a really satisfying and rich life. When I first got back to my apartment in Chicago, I opened the door, I still had my backpack on, and I looked around my apartment, and the first thing I said to myself was, I have too much stuff. Because I had just spent 40 days living in 3 pairs of clothes, 2 pairs of shoes. I had like a book and a sleeping bag, and that was it. That's all I needed. So I wouldn't say that Camino turned me into a total minimalist, but it strips you down to like, what are the basics that you need? Why do we try and pack so many different things just in case? Like, oh, I might need this, I might need that. When you strip away the excess, it's actually easier to notice the small things for which we are grateful, the small things that really make a difference, that elevate your experience. And again, it doesn't take much to do that. It can be as simple as warm water in the shower in the albergue, or having a clean pair of socks to start the next day, or someone sharing their grapes with you along the path. Stripping away the distraction and excess helps us to better focus on the basics of what we need and being grateful for the things that we have beyond the basics. And when someone helps us with the basics, increased gratitude is another side effect of walking the Camino. And I think that people should consider walking the Camino is because it really helps you learn how to live in the present and gives you some muscle memory for that in your regular daily life. So no one starts the Camino to Santiago and thinks, I'm going to start today, I'm going to take 5 steps and I'm in Santiago and we're good to go. Like, that's not how the Camino works. That's not how life works. And we know that, but the Camino helps us see it more clearly because you recognize that the only way to make progress and the only way to get to your destination is to take one small step at a time. And in doing so, you are living in that present moment. You're not focusing on the past. You're not worried about the future. Those things can come up because physical movement sometimes helps our brain process things, but that processing is happening in the present. So actually the physical movement helps give us a rhythm and a practice and a connection to the current moment. How am I feeling? Is the next step going to be on rocky ground? Is the next step going to be on asphalt, right? Like, you have to be aware of your surroundings and function in that way. So walking for a long period of time gives you muscle memory that you can then rely on a little bit in your regular daily life. Remember what being in the present is. That presence is also a part of discernment. Anyone who is struggling to figure out what they want to do in life or where they're being called to go, the Camino actually is some good practice for that, because the Camino has really obvious signs that you are supposed to follow. There are yellow arrows and yellow shells that point you in the right direction. And so it's a lovely, clear way to find your path. These are the kinds of signs I would like in my own life from God about what I'm supposed to do. So what's interesting is, again, this is like a muscle memory thing. You get practice at how to recognize the signs that are around you. I remember finding that it was easier to see the arrows and shells when we were in smaller towns and country roads. When you got into a bigger city, there was a lot more distraction and they were harder to see, but they were still there. So the more you walked, the more you got attuned to noticing the signs that had led you in the past. And so this is the key lesson for discernment, right? God is always speaking to us in ways that fit what we know to look for, but we're not always mindful of that. Reflecting upon where have you gotten direction in the past and checking those kinds of signs, and then starting to look for those in your own regular daily current life, is a way to help you discern your path for the future. Funny story, when I got back from my first Camino, I was so ingrained on following yellow arrows that there were a couple of times that I was walking in my neighborhood where I found myself suddenly standing in a neighbor's yard and thinking, why am I here? And I looked down and there would be a yellow arrow on the sidewalk, most likely for like a gas line or something, that was leading up their path. And I had just followed it because my brain was so in tune with looking for yellow arrows and doing what they told me. That's the kind of life I would like to live in terms of being able to see what God wants for me. And that takes practice, but the practice does pay off. And so I think people can walk the Camino to get that kind of practice and get that reassurance that it is possible to have that kind of clarity and discernment. It just takes a little bit of work. The third reason I think everyone should walk the Camino is actually having to do with other people and our interactions. So the Camino really helps you see both the beauty and the messiness of humanity. So it's a wonderful thing to meet people from all over the world and learn their stories. A huge lesson for me walking the Camino was just by talking with others about their lives, realizing how many different ways there are to live a life. I was at a point in my life trying to figure things out and not super happy with where I was, and thinking I only had a couple of options for the future. And then meeting all these other pilgrims, I was like, oh, there are so many different ways, things to do, and just places to be, and just basic ways to live your life really vary. And there's a lot more flexibility and freedom than I think we allow ourselves to remember. So that was wonderful. And just, it's wonderful to meet people from all over and hear their stories. It is also challenging to meet people from all over. So I don't know if you know this, but human beings can be annoying. And that is as true on the Camino as anywhere else. And in some ways, being on the Camino makes it better to deal with people who are annoying, because we are all on the same trajectory. Like, we all have the same goal. We're all trying to reach Santiago, trying to walk this pilgrimage. And so there's a little bit more grace given, but we're also all pretty much out of our comfort zones and in different places and not surrounded by the things that make us comfortable. And so that can make us a little bit grumpy at times too. And so just the Camino is like a safe environment to process some of that and to recognize that people are annoying. I can be annoying. People are also amazing, and I can give other people grace, and I need to learn to accept grace from others. There are certain things that we can control, and there are certain things that we can't. How can I focus on what I can control in terms of having a good experience? How can I control the reality that it is okay for me to be who I am, even if that is annoying? And the same is true for someone else who might be annoying me. We are allowed to be ourselves and to be human and to take up space. I think that is a reason to go on the Camino, because I think it reminds us of the foibles that we all have and the need for understanding and grace with each other, because ultimately we do all have really similar goals and trajectories. There's more variation in the world than maybe on the Camino, in the sense that the Camino has a specific destination and purpose, but it's not all that different from what people want as human beings. Anyway, I often tell people that I loved the Camino because it was the most human I have ever felt. I felt human because of how I was using my body and where I was in the physical world. I felt human because I was not distracted and I didn't have a bunch of baggage. It was just me. I felt human because I was really living in the present. I was just in the moment. I wasn't worried about what was coming or where I had been, but I was just taking it one step at a time. And then I felt really human because I was around others who were being really human. And there was a connection there in terms of all the struggles that we were having and the triumphs that we were having and the goal that we shared in arriving in Santiago. So if any of this stirs something in you, I would invite you to just take a few moments today to reflect on, is God calling me to walk a Camino, and why? Am I being called to walk towards something? Am I being called to leave something behind? What is it that I'm feeling or hearing in my heart about the Camino? And if you want any help with that kind of reflection, I do have a free Camino reflection guide. It is linked in the description below, and that's just a set of 10 questions that you can use before, during, and after a Camino to give you some things to reflect on so that you can have a little more clarity and purpose and joy in walking your Camino. So I invite you to download that. It's totally free. But wherever you are on your journey, I wish you a buen camino, and I hope to see you on the way. I'm on a tangent now, so let's not do that tangent.